Hello, my name is Caroline Webster and I'm currently the head of screen acting at East 15 Acting School, which is part of the University of Essex. And today I want to share with you some of my top tips for self-taping, which you will have seen is called 6 Steps to Successful Self-Taping. So this first step really is a chance for me to say hello, introduce myself to you, but also to explore some of the pros and cons, because there are advantages and there are disadvantages. So let's look first at what some of the disadvantages might be to doing a self-tape. Because these days, most auditions, first round auditions, are a self-tape. So all the responsibility is on the actor. So some of the disadvantages are as follows. One, you're not in the room able to actually speak to somebody. Because if you're in the room, you might have really important questions. There might be something in the script that you don't quite understand to do with the backstory or the character or a relationship or an event that gets mentioned. If you're in the room, you could ask the question. And that might really change how you play the scene. But without that, it means you've got to really do very, very thorough script preparation, which we will cover later in one of the steps. But also, therefore, make sure you really read the background information that they send you. They'll send you just a brief paragraph that will tell you a little bit about the character, a little bit about the current story, but read it thoroughly because there will be important information there. Also, something that actors don't always pay attention to is the scene description at the top of the script, where it says interior, nighttime, hospital waiting room, 11:30 p.m. Well, that gives you a lot of information. At night, our energy is different. If it's dark, it feels different. The lighting's going to be different. It's likely that there'll be less people around. If it were in the hospital waiting room at 11:30 in the morning, it's probably going to be very busy. That will change the nature of our conversation in the scene. So be aware of paying attention to that stuff so you create the right environment. Lots of actors miss it, okay? So you're not in the room, you're not able to ask questions, and the other disadvantage is, funnily, it's sort of an advantage and a disadvantage, is that they will see lots more actors, but it's very easy for them to get, no, yeah, next. So you've got to make sure that your self-tape stands out. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the 6 steps. However, there are some advantages. And the advantages are that you are in control. You get to rehearse this as much as you like, really get it in your body. So what I would suggest is when you're getting set up, do not record hundreds, okay? Rehearse it by all means with your person that you're going to read in, and you might want to, in front of the camera, rehearse it so your setup looks really good. But once you're really on it, once you've got the given circumstances, once you're really connected, once it's flowing freely and easily through you, then just do 3 or 4. Because it's quite likely those first 3 or 4 are going to be your best. Because that's when you're going to feel most on it, you're going to feel most energised. The trouble with actors is we play it back, we look at it and we become so self-critical that we can't properly see if it's really telling the story journey. So honestly, do 3 or 4 takes, then pick the best one. And that's another advantage, is you get to choose the best one. When you might do a face-to-face audition and wish you'd done it again because you feel you could have done it better. Here, you can do it again. But honestly, don't exhaust yourself, because it's quite likely you'll sort of lose it. So just do 3 or 4. Take that as an advantage. You're in control, get it really well rehearsed, but don't exhaust it, okay? So there are advantages, disadvantages, but you can take control, you can make this happen for yourself, but you want to make sure it stands out. So these 6, in the next 6 steps, or rather 5 steps from here, we're going to look at how do you make your self-tape stand out above the others. So thank you for being here, and I will see you in step 2. So next we come to script preparation, and you want to make sure that you have done really good script preparation so that you're going to get the most out of a scene that you are sent as a self-tape. So, a bit like preparing for a role or a scene in the theatre where we unit, I'm applying a similar sort of process to a screenplay, but of course screenplays are written very, very differently. We are now in the medium of the moving image, and it's all about subtext. And the one thing you need to know as an actor is that 50% of your performance is not what is said on the line, it is what's happening between and beneath the lines. So we've got to make sure we really understand that. Because when you get a script, it's written to sound like everyday conversation, most of it. Unless you're doing something that's a costume drama or, some other kind of high concept. It just sounds like everyday conversation. So it's really easy to read something and skim the surface and not really understand what's boiling away underneath. Too many outdoor actors out there, you've got to be able to access that subtext to make the story journey work. So, how do you go about that? So, what I recommend is the following. You read the script, read it several times, read it a lot. As you know, Anthony Hopkins learns his lines by reading and reading and reading. He reads something 100 times until it's absolutely down his bone marrow. So, read it a lot through until you've really got a sense of the story journey. Then look at your character and think about your objectives. Now, people use different language for this. I like using wants and needs. I like keeping it simple. So think about what your character wants and needs and be really clear and specific about it. And when I'm with students, I always advise that they get this into one sentence because it makes it really clear as to what your action is, how you want to affect the other person. Because acting is all about achieving what you want to need as you affect the other person or people in this particular scene. So I'm using a scene here today from the morning show, and I'm going to be playing the character of Sybil, who is the head of the board, but who's done something that she shouldn't have done and is now trying to save her job and save her reputation. And I'm going to be playing this scene. The scene is between Sybil and Alex, and I've got lovely Abigail here, who very kindly is going to be playing Alex for me in a step or two's time. So I've got to know exactly what it is I want from Alex. It's a two-hander scene, and I know, because I've read this a lot, that what my character really wants and needs is I want Alex to help me by interviewing me on live TV because I need to save my reputation and my job. So if I were to say that to Alex, and I think it's really good to put the words you in there so we transfer our energy into affecting the other person, I would say to Alex, I want you to interview me on TV so that I can put my case across because I need to save my reputation and my job. That's what I'd be saying to Alex, okay? So it's really clear what it is that I want to need from that character. So read your script, identify what your objectives are, what it is that you want and need from this person or people, from this situation, right here, right now. And make sure that the stakes are high enough. If you find yourself saying, look, I want you to understand because I need us to be closer, sounds a bit generic, doesn't it? Doesn't sound very clear. So make sure, you don't want to over hype the stakes. It's got to be what's true to the scene, but make sure you're really clear. So what I want is I want Alex to interview me on TV so I can put my case because I need to save my reputation and my job. That's what this scene's about. Okay. So once you've identified your wants and your needs, look at the script structure. Every scene, like a good story, will have a beginning, middle and end. And it's specifically structured like that by the writer. And what they will do is they will write an intro to the scene that tells you a bit about who's in the scene, what the backstory is. Then somebody will say or do something that is a plot development. There's got to be a plot development, is what writers do. I like to call it, however, from an actor's point of view, a dynamic shift. And what I mean by that is the tension in the relationship changes. So we start a conversation, it's reminding the audience who's in the room, a bit about the backstory, what a relationship is. Then somebody does or says something that's going to push the plot forward. It's a plot development. But what it does is it changes the tension between the characters. That's your first dynamic shift. The middle of the scene is what the scene's really about. So in this case, I've got an opening of a scene where, we're saying hello and finding out how things are currently going. But then I put in my request of what it is I really want and need, which takes us to the middle of the scene, which is where we discuss, is she going to do this live, interview with me or not? And then towards the end of the scene, there's always another dynamic shift, another plot development, which quite often is a call to action. It's a character saying, what are you or what are we going to do about this? And that leads to a cliffhanger. What's going to happen next? Because at the end of every scene, the writer wants the audience to sit there going, oh, I want to know what happens next. So there's always going to be a beginning, dynamic shift, development of what the scene is really about, dynamic shift, call to action, what's going to happen next? So I think it's really good as an actor if we know how to identify that. So when I eventually come to play this scene, I'll point those things out, okay? But be aware of what the structure is. Because what you don't want to do is get a script and play it all on one level. And it might just sound, it might sound natural, might sound real, might sound conversational, but screen acting and a good performance still needs performance energy. And it needs us, the actor, to carry and deliver the full potential of the story journey within any given scene. And I find the easiest thing to do is to go to the end of the scene. If you know the end of your scene ends in challenge and tension, which is exactly what happens in this scene, it ends in challenge and tension. If I start the scene playing like that, the story's got nowhere to go. It's going to all be on one level, all on one note. So I know I don't want to start the scene with a state of challenge and tension. I want to start it somewhere else. So that then through those dynamic shifts, through those plot developments, I can fully serve the story journey. You'll see more of that when we actually come to play the scene. But this should be part of your script preparation. And in doing so, what you're doing is you're really digging down deep between the lines. Then you might want to think about, okay, so what's my inner obstacle? What is it that my character is having to overcome? Because usually there is some emotional, psychological inner obstacle. The reason I'm pointing to my body here is because usually our emotional centre, this is where we feel it. What is it that my character needs to overcome in order to get what it is that I want and need? Well, in my case, it is there's a certain fear of being denied, but also it's my pride. I've got to overcome my pride in order to ask Alex to do what I wanted to do. Because I'm used to being the boss, I'm used to being in control, and now I'm more or less pleading with one of the employees to help me. That's tough for Sybil. She's got to overcome her pride. So I know I've got an inner obstacle of my reluctance to have to ask what I've got to ask, plus my pride. So I've worked out my want and need, I've worked out where the dynamic shifts are, I've worked out my inner obstacle, and I've worked out my story journey. I know where the scene ends, so it's often easier to go to where it ends, go back to the beginning, go, okay, so what's the kind of the atmosphere, the feeling between the characters, where does it start? Then you're able to play the full story journey from where the scene starts, through those dynamic shifts, to finally the cliffhanger, what's going to happen next? Okay, as well as that, I'm going to really read the little paragraph that they sent me to make sure I really understand what's going on, and I'm also going to read the scene setting so I understand the time of day, the environment, and therefore what kind of atmosphere, what sort of space am I in? How can I inhabit that space? How can I I don't want to, demonstrate the space, but just be alive to the fact that if I was playing this scene that needed to be highly secretive in a cafe with other people either side of me that I didn't want to hear, the dynamic of the scene would be different to us in a boardroom where actually it's only the two of us and I command the space, which is what's true of this particular scene. So that might change how you choose to play the scene, how you choose to embody the given circumstances of the scene. So I can't stress strongly enough, you really, really want to do your script preparation. When you're on set, you get very, very little rehearsal time. So as an actor, you've got to turn up ready to go. Ready to go. Doesn't mean you've made every decision. It just means you've really thought it through. You know your lines backwards. You know what it is you want and need. But you're open to listening. You've got to listen to the director, you've got to listen to the crew, and above all, you've got to be able to, in the immediate present, as Meisner says, from moment to unanticipated moment, listen and respond to your fellow actors. And we don't just listen with our ears, we listen with our eyes, we watch the immediate behaviour of other people. So you want to be so on it that you're free and open to be able to listen and respond from moment to unanticipated moment. But make sure you do that script preparation. It is really, really important. And we as actors need to ensure that we play the full dynamic potential of the story journey, because hopefully that will help your self-tape stand out. Next we come to the setup. So you want to make sure that you can get the best recording possible for your self-tape. So as you can see, I've got a setup here whereby I have got a plain grey background. So ideally you want to shoot your self-tape against a plane. It could be a wall, it could be a sheet. I've got, two tripods here and a stand across and a grey background. So white or grey, very good colours to choose. And whatever you wear, therefore try not to wear white or grey. You want to pull yourself forward in the frame so that you stand out. And you want to make sure that you are well lit. So at the moment, I'm standing opposite a lovely big window. Now I prefer using natural light because I just think the catch light in the eyes, catch light, what do I mean by that? The light that you can see reflected in my eyes makes the eyes come alive, which is great, but also it gives a very pleasing look to the eye. It's aesthetically very pleasing. So you want to make sure that you've always got a catch light. And the lovely thing about a window is you get a very natural catch light, which is a square or rectangular shape that you see in the eye. So you might want to be opposite a window. You don't want to be opposite a window where you've got direct light because you don't want to be squinting and you don't want to have burnout where it's just too bright for your camera. So as long as you're opposite a window that's got lots of lovely light, so you've got an even spread of light, they're really going to be able to see every expression, every moment of listening and thinking between and beneath the lines. That's the kind of light source. So you can also get kits. You can get self-taping kits that might come with a background, but also with a tripod and some kind of gripper arm, because most people these days use their phones, which is perfect, absolutely perfect. Phones, the cameras on phones these days are really excellent. So using your phone, you don't need a camera and a big setup. So on a tripod, you'd get something like this. So this is a sort of little gripper arm, and what it allows you to do is sit a phone in it, grip that on, if I can get my phone in there we go. And if I tighten up that screw, that's now going to hold my phone in place so that can become my camera. You can get these so that they swivel, just in case they wanted a full-length body shot too. You want to film your scene that way round, landscape, not portrait. This is how we watch film and television. So that unless they ask for it, you're not meant to film it that way. Film it that way. However, if they want a full-length body shot, then you're probably going to have to film it that way. Okay. Sometimes they want to see the whole shape of you, because if you're filming just in close-up, they don't necessarily see what your whole person looks like. So sometimes they do ask for that. So that would sit on top of a tripod, and you want to set that far enough away from you so that you're getting the right kind of framing. So let's talk about framing. The framing that I've got here, that Abigail has kindly set up for me, as you can see, is the size of a close-up. And you want to treat your self-tape as a close-up, okay? So the close-up, therefore, is the bottom edge of the frame cutting off at about the armpit level, with a little bit of space above the head and that bit of space either side, okay? And make sure you put yourself dead centre in the frame. It's not shot to self-tape as it would be when you're actually filming a scene for a TV show or for a film, where you'd be off to one side and you'd have looking room. They don't want that. They want to see you in the centre of the frame. It's all about seeing you and how you carry the story journey. I realise I forgot to mention, part of the self-tape kit also can be the light that you buy with it. Often they come with a ring light. Personally, I'm not a great fan of ring lights because they make a very, very odd shape around your eyeball, because what you get is a catch light that's circular, and mostly that's not day to day how we look at one another, and it looks very odd. Personally, I find it distracting. So I would recommend either a little panel light or a window. But it's okay to use a ring light. That's just my personal preference. I don't particularly like them because they make an odd shape in the eyeball. So you've got a nice background, you're nicely framed, you're well lit. You've got your tripod, you've got your camera. Make sure that it is on your eye level. You don't want to shoot it as you might, people get used for uploading onto Facebook or, selfie stuff, going up here because it's terribly flattering. They're not looking for that. Make sure the lens is on your eye level, okay? So set it up so the lens is on your eye level. It's set up in that framing size for a close-up. Make sure you've always got somebody to read in with you. Really, really important that you have a reader there. So let's think about where you need to position that reader. Ideally, you want the reader right next to the lens, because now, if I've got Abigail just standing there, if I put her just there, my eyes now are very close to that, so you can really see my listening and thinking. If my eyes are there or my eyes are there. It might be you have a scene with two people, in which case you want to put them really close to the lens, okay? It'll feel odd for them, but it's what they need to do so that your listening and thinking is really clear. Because you can see, if I put my reader there, which might feel more natural, now I'm in profile. You can't really see my listening and thinking, yeah? So make sure you get your reader really close to the lens so that they can see your listening and thinking, all right? Audio-wise, now I'm very lucky at the moment, we've got a camera, I've got a little microphone on it. Not everybody's got that set up. So you will know that if you put your reader right next to here, their voice is going to be louder than yours. So what you've got to remember to do is put this closer to you. You might need to zoom out a bit, get the right framing, and then get your reader to step about 1 metre behind. You always need to hear the other person's voice, but yours needs to be the dominant voice. So if you've got a situation where your reader is reading in with you and you're using a phone, and sometimes you can get little microphones so you can point it in your direction, but if you don't have that, no problem. Just get your reader to step back. But don't fall into the trap, therefore, of making your voice reach them, because it's not going to sound like a conversation in the way that it needs to. So you want to keep the same spatial dynamic, but just be aware that yours is the dominant voice. So just get them to step back so that yours is the voice that is clearer. And please always have somebody to read. It doesn't matter if it's not an actor. Hopefully you've got actor friends who will help you. But if it's your mum, if it's a neighbour, if it's your friend, have somebody to read. If you can't get anybody in the room, then at least get them via a WhatsApp live video call or something. There might be a tiny delay, but you will have somebody to listen to and respond to and work with. Never just leave gaps where you think somebody else is going to speak, or pre-record it, because that determines how you play a scene and its rhythm, and it just can't be spontaneous. So make sure you have got a reader there. It's really important. So you want to think about background, framing, light, so you get that catch light in your eyes. Have a reader there, put them very, very close to the lens so that the casting director can really see your listening and thinking. Now we've reached step 4, which is the ident. So it's quite likely that your agent or a casting director, whoever's asking you to do the self-tape, will ask you to do an ident. And what they're asking, and it's the one time you do this, is for you to look straight down the lens and to give information about yourself. And they'll tell you what it is that they want. So they probably want your name, your agent, your height, and the part that you are reading for. They like you to say reading rather than playing. That's just part of the protocol, okay? So look at that. It'll come in the email or however they've sent the information along with the script that they've sent you. So as I say, it's the one time you're going to look straight down the lens, and it might be something like this. Hello, my name is Caroline Webster. My agent is AGM. I'm 5'6", and I am reading for the part of Sybil. So that's an ident. Okay, they might also ask for a full-length body shot, in which case you can swivel it around and just do a full-length body shot. What I would suggest with an ident is record it first or last, but don't do it along with your scene, because it's a lot to ask an actor to do that and then go in and play a scene. And these days, on your phone, however you're going to edit it, there are so many easy editing packages. So make life easy on yourself. It's probably easier to shoot the ident separately. So nice, clean, down the lens, your name, Agent, if you don't have an agent, you're a British actor, you can then just say, you can find me on Spotlight, because they can. That's your professional place of contact. Name, agent, height, and the part that you are reading for. Those are the things that they mostly ask for. So straight down the lens, that's your chance to show who you are before you go on and play the scene. Now we're on to step 5. So this is the really important stuff. How do we create real dynamic in your scene so it's going to stand out above the others? So you've done your script preparation, you know your wants and needs, you've identified where the dynamic shifts are, you've got a sense of your story journey. Lovely. So you're going to have a reader in, you're going to make sure that their eye line is very close to the lens. What you want to be able to do is to embody the role. So yeah, we're shooting this as a close-up, and what's so fabulous about the close-up is it really allows us inside the character's head. We can get inside their thinking and what they're feeling from moment to unanticipated moment. That's why it's so useful for casting directors and producers and directors, because they can really see if you are in the present moment, thinking and listening from moment to unanticipated moment. So we've got everything set up. How are you going to make your self-tape stand out? So one top tip is to make sure that you create a really strong beginning and a strong end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the scene through once with Abigail. As I've said in an earlier step, this is from the morning show. We're in the boardroom. I am the head of the board, really desperate to hold on to my job. And Alex, who is the key anchor, she's the face of the show, big star, and now I need her help. So what I'd like us to do is play the scene through once, and then we'll look at how we can improve upon it and add more dynamic to the scene. Okay, so thanks Abigail, we're going to play the scene. Thanks for meeting me. Well, I was just wondering how people are reacting around the building.
You mean what Corey's doing? Well, I guess I assume his lawyers are drawing up a statement.
I thought so. So you haven't heard anything else?
I'm not a spy, Sybil.
I don't need a spy, Alex. I need an advocate.
I don't know what to tell you. It's all right there, in black and white.
Yeah, I know how it looks. I asked you here so we could work out the fastest way out of this.
I'm sorry. We?
Well, what if you were to interview me on Alex Unfiltered?
Wow. Why?
I need to speak on my own behalf.
I just don't think that going on television right now is the right thing to do.
Are you telling me I need media training after 40 years at the network that my grandfather founded?
No, this is a lot trickier than talking about the UBA stock price.
I was thrilled when we hired Chris. Yes, she was very inexperienced, but it was the right thing to do. This is ridiculous. It's a complete misunderstanding.
Well, whether it's a misunderstanding or not, I don't want to be any part of it. You of all people. What's that supposed to mean?
You know they wanted you gone, all of them. Fred, Corey, all of them. But I had your back. Because I know what it's like when a bunch of men decide that a woman is past her sell-by date. I had your back. Now you need to have mine. I've given my life to this place. I won't be cancelled over this. Okay, so there we go. It sounded pretty conversational. The framing was good. There was quite a good bit of story journey. But how can we improve upon that? So, what you want to do is you want to create a strong beginning and a strong ending. So, if I've given my ident like this, and I'm just straight down the lens, what I suggest is that when you start your scene, put your body in a slightly different place. Just so that the minute they go from, seeing the ident to seeing the character, wow, it looks different. So let's say I've done my ident here. Why don't I start my scene here? Because if I know I've got Abigail, who's playing Alex, whose eye line is there, the first thing I can do is instantly animate it. I can instantly make it active by it being in my body. Because you see, that first time through I kind of kept it all here, which is fine. But can I do more with it? Can I make it visually just a little bit more interesting to show that I really know how to use the lens? So if you watch yourself tape and you find, oh God, it looks a bit stiff, and my body looks a bit stiff, just have a go at loosening it off in the same way that when we work in theatre, we want those impulses, natural impulses. It's fine for those impulses to come, even on a close-up. You just want to contain them from the camera. But let those impulses be there. It allows your thinking body to be alive. You want your whole body to tell the story. So one way that you can immediately show your body telling the story is by putting your eye line somewhere else. It looks great when eyes go across the lens. Can't go down the lens, but if eyes go across the lens, you're really allowing the audience into your listening and in thinking, okay? So what if I were to start there, and then I see her and I go, oh, thanks for meeting me. Instantly, I've put it into my thinking body. It's tiny, but I'm living the life of the character. So it's a top tip I give to all my students. Live the life of the character before you hit action or before you start your self-tape. It means that you're already playing the scene, and you're going to avoid that terrible thing that can sometimes happen where a scene goes, oh, now you're in the scene. But the first few lines don't count for anything because you're just trying to catch up. Get it in your body, I promise. If you've really engaged with the given circumstances, if your inner obstacle is strong, if you know what you want and need, and your whole body is engaged with it, the scene will kind of play itself. It'll just be lovely because your whole being is ready to affect the other person with what it is that you want and need. So create a strong beginning, and that strong beginning is just by maybe changing your body just very, very slightly, putting your eye line somewhere else, so that as that person comes in, or as you might have the first line. In this scene, I have the first line. It might be the other person has the first line, fine. You might be doing something else. The character might be checking their watch and then the other person speaks. It just is going to enliven the scene from the word go. Likewise at the end, try not to get too eye-locked. And what I mean by that is when your eyes get stuck here. So if your body looks a bit stiff and looks a bit stuck, what you want to do is make sure that last thought lands and your last line lands, and as it happens in the scene, I have got the last line. So my last line is, I won't be cancelled over this. And I could just hold her eye line in challenging, or I could do this. So I could, as I did in that previous take, just hold her eye line, or I can use my line to do this. I won't be cancelled. All I'm doing is keeping it in my body. What I've done then is give myself edit choices. I can edit out of the scene as I hold that, or I can edit out of the scene as I continue to live the life of the character. What you don't want to do is look at the end of it frozen. So, strong beginning, strong end. Make that last line land, or if you are the receiver of the information, if you're listening, make the last thought land. And if it were actually Alex saying something to me, then make sure you react to what it is. You don't want to, act reacting. But if you're really listening, if you're really reading the immediate behaviour of the other actor in front of you, your body will want to do something. It's unlikely it will want to be stuck there. So allow that to travel through your body. It's just going to look like you're really owning the character, owning the given circumstances, and that your whole being is present. Okay, so you've done your script preparation. You know where your dynamic shifts are. So there are the dynamic shifts in this scene. They happen at the point when I say to Alex, well, what if you were to interview me on Alex Unfiltered? So the beginning of the scene is me just trying to find out and measure what the atmosphere is amongst the workforce. I then am the one that drives the scene by asking her, would you do this for me? Are you willing to help me? Because remember, what I want and need is for her help in order to save my career and my job. Then you can feel the tension change, so you need to be aware of that. Then the second dynamic shift, that is a call to action, is when I challenge her to remember, and I say, you of all people. I call her out on it, i.e. what I'm saying is, you owe me. You owe me. Because other people in the past have wanted to fire you, but thanks to me, you're still here. So I use that as my bargaining chip. So there we go, beginning, middle, end of the story. I want to observe those dynamic shifts, okay? And I want to make sure that that last moment lands. If I can do those things, I can add a little bit more dynamic to how I play the scene. So what I would like to do is now play the scene a second time through and add a couple of those things, a few of those things, and we'll just see if it just lifts it off the page a little bit more. Okay, so thank you, Abigail. We'll play the scene again. Oh, thanks for meeting me. I'm just wondering how people are reacting around the building.
You mean what Corey's doing? Well, I assume his lawyers are drawing up a statement.
I thought as much. So you haven't heard anything else?
I'm not a spy, Sybil.
I don't need a spy, Alex. I need an advocate.
I don't know what to tell you. It's all right there in black and white.
I know how it looks. I asked you here so that we can work out the fastest way out of this.
I'm sorry. We.
Well, what if you were to interview me on Alex Unfiltered?
Wow. Why?
I need to speak on my own behalf.
I just don't think going on television right now is the right thing to do.
You're telling me I need media training after 40 years at the network that my grandfather founded?
No, this is a lot trickier than talking about UBA stock price.
I was thrilled when we hired Chris. Yes, she was very inexperienced, but it was the right thing to do. This is ridiculous. It's a complete misunderstanding.
Well, whether it's a misunderstanding or not, I don't want any part of it.
You of all people.
What's that supposed to mean?
You know they all wanted you gone. Fred, Corey, all of them. But I had your back. Because I know what it's like when a woman is told that she has passed her sell-by date. I had your back. Now you have to have mine. I've given my life to this place. I won't be cancelled by this. So, I've just applied those things. I've just made it just that little bit more active. I put my eyeline somewhere else. I was therefore living the life of the character as the scene began. I used my body just that little bit more. I fetched thoughts from either side of the lens. It looks great when that happens. Follow those impulses, okay? If you get that impulse, if you need to fetch a thought, because, what we're doing here is creating something that sounds like a conversation. We want to use the dialogue so it sounds like a conversation. And what's a conversation? It's an improvisation. Of course it is, isn't it? I don't know what I'm going to say next. I don't know what, if I was in a conversation, the other person's going to say next. So we want to give it that same spontaneous, improvisational, needing to think and fetch the right words and fetch the thoughts. It's what I'm doing now as I explain this to you. You can see my eyes are going either side of the lens because my body needs to find the right words. I need to find the right way to express what it is I need to express. So if you get those impulses, use them. Yes, of course, you want enough eye line and eye contact with the person that you are talking to. But if you find yourself watching back your self-tape and it actually looks terribly stiff, know that you can let it go a bit, okay? It looks great. As long as it's really focused, you're still containing the energy for a close-up, but you're able just to loosen it off a little bit. It shows that you've really engaged with the given circumstances, your whole body is involved, you're serving the story journey, you're observing the scene dynamics, and you're able, therefore, to create a dynamic performance that we hope is going to stand out from the rest. Please give it a try. And finally, it's step 6. So this is where you get to play back your self-tapes and apply a bit of critical review so that you can choose what you think is the best one. So really what you're looking for are all those things that we've covered in your script preparation, through your rehearsal. Have you created a lovely dynamic story journey? Does it start somewhere, finish somewhere else? Have you created a strong beginning and a strong end by breathing through it, by embodying the given circumstances, by your whole thinking body being alive to the action before and after the dialogue? The dialogue has to start somewhere, it has to end. But that's not the beginning and end of the lives of these characters. They're coming from somewhere and going to somewhere. So make sure that you are living the life of the character at the very beginning, so you create a strong beginning. Likewise, as that final thought lands, Either you say the last line and you make that last line land, or you receive the information and that last line lands with you, affects you in some way. Keep it alive on the inside. You've then given yourself really strong edit points of where you want to start your scene and where you finish your scene with something that looks wholly embodied, wholly absorbed in the given circumstances. Is your want and need clear? Are you really affecting the other person? Can you see lovely thinking and listening? Can you see the thought transitions? Can you see? It's fascinating when you see a character make a decision. Wonderful. Can you see that decision being made? Can you see those moments of light and shade when a scene feels a bit positive and then goes negative? Have you created that kind of dynamic in your scene? Watch out for it. Is it sounding conversational? As we know, conversation needs to have the same feeling as an improvisation. That's what a conversation is. I don't know what I'm going to say next. I don't know when I'm talking to somebody what they're going to say next. So we wanted to have that level of spontaneity, but never confuse conversationality with it being so casual that it's under-energized and can sound a bit dull. If it all sounds a bit flat and a bit one note, then you know you're not giving it enough performance energy. However, you don't want to go the other way. You don't want to go the other way whereby through it being a bit too effortful, it sounds a bit theatrical. It's true, in conversation, we might emphasise words. We have to, in order to get our meaning across. But it's different to me saying, we have to emphasise a word, which I might do on stage to make it reach, to actually say, we have to emphasise a word. And if I under-energise it, we have to emphasise a word. It just goes for nothing. It needs that extra little bit of performance energy to make it clear, but without the language being pushed or pressed. Now, what's interesting is if you get a script where you might have slightly heightened language, so that could be costume drama. It could be something like Game of Thrones. For them, however, that language is everyday language. So let's say we've got a line that is something like, if we defeat them, the kingdom will be ours. Let's say we've got that line. And it depends who you're saying it to. If I am playing a character of a queen and I'm addressing a big audience, and these are all my warriors in front of me, I might need to slightly raise my voice and say something like, and if we defeat them, the kingdom will be ours. That's a slightly, but if it's actually, I'm just saying it to my husband, who is the warrior, and if we win, he's going to inherit the crown, and he's standing just there, and I can then say to him, and if we win, the kingdom will be ours. I've still given it that energy, but I'm not overplaying it. I'm not making it sound theatrical. I'm using the language without pressing the language. Listen out for that if you get that kind of genre of material that you've got to record. So use those points as a little checklist, as it were, to review your self-tape, and hopefully you tick all those boxes out of those 3 or 4 takes that you've done, and you've created a lovely dynamic self-tape, still contained within the conversation bubble. Imagine it as a bubble. We create them all the time as we have conversations. If it's sounding nice and conversational and dynamic, you've served the story journey. Hopefully you will have created a really lovely self-tape that is going to stand out from the others. So I hope you found this useful. I wish you good luck with your self-tapes and your auditions, and thank you for watching.